fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind.
It was basically a cube with inside of a sphere where the points of the cube were touching outside of the sphere.
Roger. They're troubleshooting as soon as I get.
So this isn't anything that just is limited to the United States. It's a worldwide phenomenon.
Joining me now for the second in the series of Experiencer shows, I have Jonathan Davies, who is a lifelong experiencer from Wales and a co-host on the Special Access podcast. Also, a team member of SUFON, that's the Swansea UFO network. Jonathan, welcome to the podcast.
Hi Andy, thanks for having me on, mate.
No, it's good to speak to you face to face as such. We've talked online for a while via DM and on various threads on the UFO Twitterverse, so it's nice to converse properly.
Yeah, I agree. I've been watching all your shows and loving every minute of it. And like I've told you a million times, you should be doing this for a living. And I know everyone is thinking you're killing it doing this, mate. You and Dan are doing a great job.
Well, when I let Dan out, he does all right, doesn't he? He's no, thanks. I appreciate you saying that. Listen, for anyone unfamiliar with yourself, John, do you care to share just a little bit of background with us as to who you are?
Yeah, I'm from Wales. I live in Monmouthshire now, but I've lived all over South Wales in the UK. I'm a lifelong experiencer. I've literally, ever since I can remember, I've been seeing things. I started off seeing orbs when I was a child. I would not know I was any different to any other kids at the start. I thought everyone could see these things. I didn't really even point them out to other kids until I went to school. And I can remember the first time I was in school. We go out on the playing fields, and I said to one of the other kids, "Let's chase them." And it was orbs on the edge of the field, and I can remember the look on the kid's face. Now I get chills now looking back because it affected me that he really thought I was nuts. I got that impression right from the first day that I ever mentioned it to another kid, because he didn't see him, and he pointed out to every other kid in the school that I was a nut. And it was a real issue for me for my entire childhood, basically in school until the point I was 15 when I moved schools and moved out the area, and I'm basically shut it off, never told another soul. And up until a couple of years ago, when the Nimitz stuff came out, and I came out again.
Yeah, just before we started recording, we were just talking briefly, and you were mentioning the frustration at people who would claim to be an experiencer. Now, I've shared on the podcast ad nauseum a couple of sightings I've had. I'm not an experiencer, though. For you, what is the definition of an experiencer?
But it's obviously an experience if you see a UFO. Don't get me wrong. We can use that word. It's an experience, of course it is. But for me, an experiencer is somebody who's got a lifelong, it hasn't got to be lifelong, but a major interaction or a personal, real close-up encounter or entity interactions, much more than just seeing lights in the sky. That's something I see lights in the sky. I've seen 2 UFOs, if you want to call them that, this week. So it's very, very normal for me to see these things, and it always has been. I mean, I live in Wales. Wales is like a tropical rainforest with weather side of things, with the rain. It's not the heat, but certainly the rain. And if it was as cloudy as it is, I'd probably see these things a hell of a lot more. But it's constant for me, and it's always been constant for me. And I find it upsetting, to be honest with you, when I hear people say I'm an experiencer, and it's like the term has been hijacked when they don't really understand what it means. If they knew what it really meant, that this is bad for your health almost, because it messes with your head, because these things going on with you don't know what they are. It really does get to you. It upsets me greatly sometimes. I haven't been to bed for more than 9 months ago. I had a major experience, and I haven't been to bed since, because it happened in my bedroom. My daughter's upstairs and my wife, and I didn't want them to experience what I had just experienced, So people jumping on this I'm an experiencer bandwagon, not really understanding what that really means, I just don't think it's right. I don't know. I'm not after a ranking scheme, or it's not an ego thing. It's just that we really do need to know who the real people are in this topic, who are the ones we should concentrate on to go to ask what has really happened to you, so we can get some information, as opposed to everyone. If everyone says I'm an experiencer, you don't know whether they've just seen a light in the sky every now and then, or once in a lifetime. There's
Let
no
me
way
ask,
of
John.
knowing.
You mentioned from a young age, obviously, if as a child you were seeing orbs and having those interactions. From what age and what particular incident would you say you became an experiencer? Was there one thing you remember going back?
I mean, there's loads. I mean, I had when I was 13, I had an appendicitis incident. I was in the woods on my own, and I was in agony. I was on the floor. I collapsed, and I got surrounded by orbs. That was once. When I was 15, I was in a field a few miles from home. I had no memory at all of how I got in that field. It was late evening. It happened to be I know the dates because it turned out there was a major incident that night, the night of the triangles in Wales. So it was the 19th of January in 1983, and it was about 8 o'clock-ish. I would assume. I didn't know the time, but I was in a field. I looked up, and I saw the whole sky move. It was a miles wide craft. It was the biggest thing I'd ever seen. I'd been seeing orbs, and I'd seen most of the other shapes. I'd seen cigars and things like that. Everyone calls them Tic Tacs now, but they were big cigars, same shape. But anyway, this craft moved. I was in a bubble. I couldn't, there was no sound around me. There was like I was in a world of my own type thing. And I look up, and as soon as it moved, the bubble burst. I was freezing cold because 19th of January in the UK is winter. And I had just had a T-shirt on, and I suddenly, what am I doing in this field? I had no memory of that day at all, or the previous day. I had no memory at all. I mean, I literally looked to my right, and I saw where I was. There was a leisure centre to my right, and I was in the leisure centre playing fields, a couple of miles from home. And I looked back at the craft, and I watched it drift away, and it was literally colossal. I couldn't see the left-hand side, how big it went. It was too far that way. It was too far that way for me to say how big it was. And that was my first major experience. I ran home. I didn't go through the front door of my house when I finally got home. I went around the back. I climbed up the drain pipe. I went in through the bathroom window. I went to bed, and I expected the next day to get. It did that basically because I thought I must have done something. You know what I mean? I was worried I was going to get told off by my parents because I had no memory where I'd been or what I'd done, and I thought I must have done something. So I literally went out the drain pipe, went to bed, got up the next day ready for school, and went down expecting to get it off my mum and dad. What the hell had I done? I was thinking I was going to get it, and they didn't say a word apart from my mum saying, "You didn't clean your rugby boots yesterday." That told me what day of the week it was because we always played rugby on a Wednesday. But anyway, I thought I've got away with it. Great. I went to school. My head was messed up, because I didn't know what had even happened in school. I didn't know what I'd been doing or anything for 2 days. But I didn't say anything to my friends. Again, I thought I'm not going to look stupid. I've had that effect when I was younger. And I didn't want that in my comp school as well. I knew that the kids from my local school had gone to the comp, and I was always worried they were going to tell everyone else in the comp, about me as well. And so I didn't say anything. And we moved house then 2 weeks later, and we moved out to the area. So I knew I didn't have to say anything. I thought I'm going to get away with this. And I never said a word. We moved to the oldest house in Newport. It was built in 1580, an old mansion house. And I'd never seen a ghost, or what people class as a ghost, up until that point. But then from that, I don't know whether it was the interaction with what had happened a couple of weeks earlier with this giant craft, and whether I had missing time as well. I forgot to mention that. I had about an hour and a half of missing time where I've no idea where I was. But anyway, we moved to this house, this old house, and I started seeing ghosts. They would sit on my bed. They would push me, hit me, talk to me, and I had an ongoing experience then for the next 5 or 6 years while we lived in that house nearly every day. I mean, my sister moved out of the house. That's how spooky it was. It had its own chapel in the house. You know, it was a really old house. So that was that one. And then next
John,
major
let me jump
experience.
in.
Yeah.
Let me jump in on that. Thanks, because that was a really interesting story you've told there, the first part as well. Now, you talk about the missing time. Had you ever since then looked at anything like regression, or had any idea of what happened during that missing time?
I've never looked at regression. I've looked at the effect and the trolling that has happened to people who've had regression, and the thought of finding out. I've got a memory. I haven't got a memory about it, you know. So it's not a bad memory. So I don't want to be regressed and then suddenly find something really bad happened to me, because I've been till recently. This I said about the 9 months ago. I haven't been to bed, you know. I had never had a bad experience, or I didn't think I'd had a bad experience because I haven't got a memory of it. Okay, so it really puts me off the idea of suddenly finding out they're doing terrible things to me, you know, and then it's already messed my life up almost, you know, and I really don't want, you know what I mean? Am I going to therapy after I've had that regression? You know, I'd just prefer not to have the regression and avoid it completely. That's my my thing on that. What's the other part of your question? Sorry, Andy, missed.
No, that's completely fair. It's, you know, ignorance is bliss is the old phrase, and especially when it comes to that. Your first answer was funny. You mentioned like you don't want to get regression because of trolls and whatnot, and I was going to say, but even for yourself, but your reasoning and logic of I'd rather not know is perfectly sound, because I'm sure there are other people.
Go on.
No, that's it. I'm sure there are other people that, like you, if they had the option of knowing something like that, they maybe wouldn't want to know. It's better to not know.
Yeah, but you also get them people saying to you, why is he avoiding it? What is he hiding? That's the trolling side of it. You know, it's bad enough and hard enough for experience to come out in the first place. And I waited 48 years to say a word, you know, in public. Apart from that experience, that first time when I first told that one kid, it ruined to the point I went to comp, it ruined my life. You know what I mean? I had no friends. I literally was living this. I would go other kids were playing football with other friends after school and stuff. I wasn't able to do that because I was getting abuse. So I would literally go off on my own, and I'd be seeing these orbs following me around like, they're like, I class them like a mirror glass, like a camera is following me around. They were following me around everywhere I went, like as if they were keeping an eye on me. Strange, Andy. I haven't got a clue what they are. You know, I'm not going to pretend I know what they are because I don't. I haven't got a clue. But that's the sort of thing that's got into my head over the years. Are they some sort of like mirror glass camera from another dimension or something, and they're literally keeping an eye on me? You know, it was strange. I said about the orbs where they were all above me when I had the appendix incidents and my appendix was bursting. Yeah, I never saw those small orbs after that. So I literally crawled home, went to hospital, had my appendix out, never saw the small orbs again, and I've never seen them since. I only see massive orbs now. You know, giant size, van size orbs. You know, or hot air balloon size orbs, massive ones. Yeah, it's strange.
You mentioned, John, that you waited 48 years to even talk about this at all. What was the point after all that time? You decided enough was enough.
Well, I watched like everyone else on UFO Twitter. I saw the Nimitz stuff coming out. I saw the New York Times stuff coming out, and I thought, well, if it's going into the press now, it's becoming mainstream. And I had a business. I mean, I'll tell you, it's not quite true, actually, Andy. In 2010, I had another major incident where I had an object landed by my house when I lived in West Wales. And that was a crazy experience. I mean, I can talk about that, but I doubt if you've got enough time.
No, listen, go for it.
Okay, so basically, my daughter was 2. We're living on the coast, just North Gower, opposite Llanelli, on the opposite coast of the estuary. And my daughter stood over by the conservatory window, and she suddenly says bright. She's 2 years old. That was a good word for her. So I thought, oh, great word. So I walked over to the window thinking, what's she on about? And even though I've been seeing these all my life, she threw me off balance, and I was looking out the window, and there's an orange orb, a big orange orb, by the tree of my neighbour's tennis courts, right by my house, literally just at the end of the garden. And it's just sitting by this tree, and all of a sudden, it shoots to my right and down. We're on top of a hill. Okay, so it shoots into the estuary, which is like a salt marsh. The tide is out. Okay, and it shoots down so fast. It's like the Tic Tac speed when they talk about it. What was it, 70,000 miles an hour or something crazy? But if I blinked, I would not have seen this. It was I almost didn't see it, and then there it is. But it moves so fast, it threw me off guard because I've never seen them move that fast before. They used to always mosey along whenever I saw them, and let me see them whenever I wanted. But this was like boom, and I thought, oh my god, it's crashed. But there was no sound. I opened the windows of the conservatory and I'm listening. There's no sound. And all of a sudden, then this thing starts doing massive, bright flashes of light, all different colours, like blinding, like boom, right in your face, like a lighthouse. But they seem to be directed to me. That's the way it felt to me at the time, anyway. Again, there's no sound. And then another object appears directly opposite between me and this other object over Buryport and Llanelli. There's cloud. So this thing is below cloud level, but it looks like the moon, but it's got like a bluey green. It's bright white, but bluey green edges, about the size of a very large moon. So that's just stopped dead directly between me and this object on the ground, which has continued flashing. And then all of a sudden I can hear what sounds like a Chinook helicopter coming in from the north of the estuary. And I can hear it. I could see two lights, like not flashing lights, a red and white light, a steady light, coming in very low, and the Chinook getting louder and louder and louder, twin rotor helicopter. It gets up to the object on the ground, and there's a little flash of light between the two of them, and the helicopter vanished. Totally vanished. The sound of the helicopter totally vanished. And then I can hear it again, 2 miles up the coast. I can hear the same thing happening all over again. It starts coming in again. It gets up to the object. There's another flash of light, vanish. 8 or 9 times it happened, it was nuts. So I knew, I knew anyway that it wasn't, something legit, but the helicopter threw me off guard because I was thinking, maybe I've got this wrong, maybe this is some military thing that's going on, or, and I get the impression now that is the idea behind what I class now as a fake helicopter, that they are used as some sort of distraction and to make people think, oh, there's nothing going on. This is a legitimate thing that you're seeing. Don't worry about it. It's military or something. Was it holographic? Was it was my mind being altered in some way? Altered perception? I have no idea. I took pictures of everything that was going on. I'd run down the house at one point and I had a brand new camera I bought 2 days previous. Never used it. Literally put the batteries in to see whether I could to test it. Just in case I had to send it back. Anyway, so I took loads of pictures. Didn't realise until the next day they had a video function. You know what I mean? Anyway, that all went on with the helicopter. To my left is the sea. Yeah, I hadn't noticed, and there was an emerald green object coming in from the sea, and it got right up close to this object that's on the ground, which was originally an orange orb, but it turned into like a blue object, a craft. Okay, so this thing gets right up, this emerald object gets right up to it. It shines. The only way I can describe it is like Star Trek when there's a tractor beam, because it shone a light onto this object on the ground, a green light. It wrapped itself around it, and they literally took itself out to sea. The two of them went out to sea quite slow. Yeah. As soon as that started happening, the helicopter vanished and never came back. And the object over Llanelli that had been sat there, like keeping an eye on things, I don't know, that vanished. And it just went off. The next day, I was expecting the neighbours to have all seen this because of all the noise of the helicopter and all the, So I thought I'd go down the road, try and find some other witnesses. Couldn't find any of the witnesses. It's a holiday area, so most of the houses are empty at that time of year. So I only found 2 people, and neither of them had seen it. That was that. Went back to work. I worked from home. I went back to work, phoned up everyone I could think of, the police. I phoned the police on the night. I mean, they hadn't heard anything because I thought, I'll not wipe that one off the slate. Was it a police helicopter? Did anyone else report it? I was trying to find out, nobody had reported anything, didn't know anything about it. And they kept phoning me for weeks on end afterwards because everyone in the police station was really interested. I always got the impression that, because they knew something, it's paranoia, but that was the impression I was getting. Why did they keep phoning me, I tried everyone. I phoned Nick. I got in touch with Nick Pope. Nick Pope had already left the MOD. He didn't want to know. He just said that, baffling and intriguing pictures. That was about it, though. The same next day again, I saw two black vans. Two black vans had parked it right in the spot where this thing had landed. And there was blokes literally wandering around with either metal detectors or radiation things, strange equipment looking, I couldn't really... I had a pair of binoculars I'd been watching it all with the night before and the camera, but I'd left them at the top of the house. I didn't go back up because I was in the middle of my day of work. But I kicked myself now I didn't take pictures of the black vans as well. But I don't know. I mean, were they really black vans though? Because I went to the castle where the track was, where these vans would have had to have come out from onto the marshes. And I spoke to the farmer, and the farmer told me that he'd never let anyone out there. He took me to the gates that was padlocked, and said, I've never let anyone out there. It's private property, and you're not allowed out there because they used to do bomb disposal out there because they use it as a range during the war. Okay, so it's nobody goes out there. I mean, it's been hinted at me again that maybe they weren't really black vans and they weren't really men, and they were, again, something being manifested and something else was really there, because how the hell did they get out there through those locked gates, I don't know.
John, let me ask, because that's fascinating. Do you have any idea or any best guess what these things may be or where they may be from?
Oh, mate. That's why I'm doing this 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to find out like the rest of us. I wish I had the answers. I haven't got any answers. All I can tell you is what happened to me. I really do wish
why
I could.
You though? Why do you think it's happening to you?
I really don't know. Like I said, I thought it was happening to everyone before I went to school, until that first kid said to me, I'm nuts. I thought all kids could see, these orbs. And that was the point I learned they couldn't, and that's the point I knew that I was different and I had to shut my mouth, or it was going to cost me, and it has cost me,
Yeah, it's something you've lived with and you've dealt with it for decades. You've now not only got yourself to look after, you've got your wife and daughter you mentioned. What sort of effect does your experiences have on them?
Well, my daughter can see things as well. She sees things that she doesn't see the small orbs that I saw when I was a child, but she saw that orb before I did when I moved down to Gower when it landed. She pointed it out to me, and then a couple of Christmases ago, Christmas Day, we went out for lunch. We were coming back. There were 3 giant orbs in the middle of the road, just above the road, massive ones, about hot air balloon size. But my wife has no interest in the topic at all, so I didn't. People go mad. I don't stop the car and take pictures, but I see these things all the time. You know what I mean? So that was a good one, but it was Christmas Day. We were full. We were all tired, and I wanted to get home. So we didn't. But it's difficult. It really is difficult I'm doing this on my own,
Have you ever felt
it is 7 days a week. It is 15 hours a day. It is a total obsession to try and find answers, and it really does take it out of you. So that's where I go on about. Please don't call yourself an experiencer, because if you're not an experiencer, you know what I mean. It means something, and it's not a nice thing sometimes,
No, have you ever felt threatened by them?
Well, I haven't been to bed for about just over 9 months because I was lying. I woke literally with my mouth open. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move my body at all apart from my eyes. And this was the first negative experience I can remember. Okay. And there was literally a female entity an inch from my mouth with hair that was like 7 foot long, floating in the air by the side of her house, massive bull-like eyes. And she scared the shit out of me. Okay. It really did scare me. And she looked really pissed off that I'd caught her. and she floated to the end of the bed. I could see this because my wife sleeps with a light on, with a small light lamp, and my daughter does as well. They can't sleep in the dark, but so I could see her perfectly. And so she floated to the end of the bed. One more horrible look for me, and then vanished. She looked like a hag, like a horrible hag, and freaked me out. I'm totally. As soon as she vanished, I could breathe. I'm like I screamed. My dog, that would normally hear every noise and bark at anything, sleeps on the bed with us, and she didn't murmur. My wife is still, even though I screamed as loud, as loud as I could, didn't wake up. I literally got up, checked the house, and been to bed since. So again, it's annoying when people want to be an experiencer. It doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't make sense to me at all. Why would you want to be an experiencer? Yeah, okay, you want to see a UFO, but you really don't want the rest of it that goes with it.
Let me ask
some
John
of the
now.
things that I've been told by other experiencers, you really wouldn't want to be an experiencer.
And listen, I appreciate everything you've shared with us so far as well. And in a short time, it's a lot you've given us, which I appreciate. And we will talk again. But I've got a few things I want to get to before we wrap up our time. And this is some of the stuff we have talked about online. And I'll be honest, one of the reasons I'm doing this is someone like yourself and the frustration I've seen from you and others that you're not being heard. And other people seem to pick and choose when experiences are relevant or when their stories are relevant. So I'm trying to give people the time to at least share a little bit of their story. So hopefully I've managed to do that and give you that platform. But I want to know, in your opinion, actually no, forget not in your opinion because that's wrong, is now the right time for experiencers' stories to be involved in the mainstream conversation? Before you answer, thinking if you can take yourself away from you are the person having these experiences and you tell that to the every man or every woman, every person in the street, what they're going to say, or what the majority are going to think.
Yeah. I get the reason why the way things have panned out. I get it. I get the reason why we've been locked in the closet for a bit, and they didn't want to talk to the congressman. We weren't going to get a real conversation going with them. I get all that side of things, But before we went to speak to the congressman, there was no reason why experiencers couldn't have been at the table with the people who were going to meet the congressman. Okay, that's the point I've been trying to make. It's not that I want to be throwing this down their throats. People are being abducted, and what the hell are you going to do about it? And blowing this out of all proportion for, and then us not getting more June reports and more congressional hearings or any congressional hearings. I didn't want any of that. Don't get me wrong, and I know that experiencers don't just stop anything from happening. But there was no reason why we couldn't be there forming the questions and forming the plan of how to proceed. And that is what we've been shut out of.
Do you not think that there's a possibility that has or is happening in the background? It's just that, given the nature of it, people like yourself aren't going to be in the know of that.
Yeah, you might be right. I mean, I've heard that Sean Cahill, for instance, is a full-on experiencer, but Sean has never told me what his experiences are, so I've got no way to judge that. So I can only go on the things I do know, and I do. I know the other people as well. I know Lou has said or hinted that he had an experience at Skinwalker Ranch. I don't know what that was. Again, so it's hard. It's hard for me to say yes, we're already in there when I don't know are they real experiences? What I class as a real experiences, what I've tried to describe to you, I don't know. Did Lou just see a light in the sky? I don't know. Is that what Sean saw? I don't know. So I can't say experiences have already been at the table and already been forming these questions, and so nobody's been left out the loop because we don't know. This is the problem. It'd be nice if somebody was in there who I did know was a full-on experiencer, who could say, "Well, yeah, everything's being covered. Don't worry, mate." But I'm not being told that. So I've already got the frustrations of, this is brilliant that you're doing this, Andy. I mean, it speaks volumes about you, mate, that you're doing this experience podcast in the first place. It speaks volumes because there is a huge stigma attached to us, and everyone uses it against us to not get us involved. We're not involved in the panel discussions when all the, I'm not going to bring up names, but there was some big panel discussions recently, but there weren't enough experiences on there as far as I was concerned. Okay. Because again, we're seen as hurting or potentially hurting the movement towards everything that's trying to be achieved. We're out of the loop, and it is beyond frustrating. We're the ones who've been wanting the answers the longest. We are the ones bringing all the information to the people. I've just told you a load of things that have happened to me. Now hopefully you're aware that, I'm hoping that your gut feeling will say this guy's genuine, because how the hell can he speak at this sort of motor speed and not be telling the truth? He can't make it up that quick, surely, But I don't know. I do my best to try and tell people what has happened to me, and it's down to them to believe me. And
John,
I'm past,
the way I see it,
caring, mate, past caring.
yeah, no, the way I see it, and like I say, I talk about, especially when I saw that Ferris wheel type object when I was like 9 or 10, and even speaking to people like David Marler who have spoken to tons and tons of witnesses, and they say that's quite different to what a lot of people see, given it was quite low to the ground, it was on its side spinning and all that kind of stuff. But I know I saw that. I saw it with people who have no interest in the subject as well. My sister kind of does, but my mum and the other people don't really. And that all I've got is that story. And whenever it does come up outside of, especially outside of this podcast, if it ever comes up in conversation with friends or anyone like that, then you get all sorts of reactions to it, and people. And the question normally I just ask is, why would I make that up? There's obviously attention and stuff like that, but I mean, come on, there's better stories for attention than that. I could claim I get taken backstage at an Oasis concert once, and Noel Gallagher gave me a signed guitar, and I can't show you the guitar because it's hidden away in the loft, but I've got it. I've got his Nebworth guitar. If anyone wants to send me some Liam Gallagher,
Hal Puthoff said something interesting to me. I was at the SU conference, and I was chatting to him there, and he said he's more likely to. It was an ongoing chat after the conference, and he said he's more likely to believe the experiencer who tells him the more outlandish story than he is somebody who said, I just saw a craft. Okay. He said, if it was a 30-foot craft on the ground and the person said, I walked inside the craft, and when I got inside, it was the size of 2 football fields, Hal is much more likely to believe it. Okay. And that's the way I am as well. I mean, sometimes obviously you've got to be skeptical, because I'm skeptical with a lot of stuff I listen to as well. Because if I think I've experienced most of the things in this field, so I can judge. I hope I can judge, when somebody's bullshitting. But it's still difficult, because there are wannabes. There seem to be wannabes in this field as well that are just making up and trying to make money out of this topic, and it's really difficult. And loads of fakes that are really not helping us. I'm looking forward to this software that Lou has been on about. Is coming out soon. And hopefully we'll be able to tell whether what's fake and what's not fake. Can't wait for that.
John, just to wrap up, and again, I really appreciate the time you've given us, is there any advice you would go back and give your younger self with regard to coming to terms and dealing with these experiences?
Oh, God, mate. It's difficult, because you'd like to say, yeah, I should have come out earlier and talked about it, but look what happened to me by coming out and talking about it when I was young. It literally ruined my life. I would think things will be changing for other people. I wouldn't advise kids to come out, obviously, but maybe if you're past 50 and you want to come out and start talking. Now, I've got a feeling there's a lot of people that could come out and talk. I mean, I met a couple yesterday that are in their 70s, and they've never spoken about something that happened to them 40 years ago, and it's happened every day since. Okay, so there are a lot of people out there that will speak if we can get rid of the stigma, but it's difficult, really difficult.
And conversely, what would you recommend if someone's listening to this right now and hears your story, your experiences, your trauma? What would you recommend to them?
Get in touch with other experiences and share, and try and there's an experiencer group that Jay King has set up, and maybe I'm not a member of that because this is part of my life now, and I'm used to. I don't really need like a conversational therapy type thing that I think that probably is. I don't really know because I'm not a member, but I get that's the impression of it. But maybe that, if other experiences need that, speaking to other experiences definitely helps.
That is all for this week's show. Thank you very much for listening. Please remember to leave the podcast a review on your chosen platform. You can like, retweet and subscribe. That would all be very much appreciated. The shows are being uploaded onto YouTube as we speak more and more. You can sign up at patreon.com/That UFO podcast to access the shows ad-free as well. Please get in touch on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, That UFO podcast. Of course, on Twitter it's at UFO UAPAM. And again, folks, as always, keep looking up. You never know what you might see.
It wasn't a tic-tac and not quite a saucer, more like a hubcap designed by Chaucer, a little baroque and quite steampunk, like Alice was playing bass for the Parliament of France. The little fucker hovered right outside of my window, and when I shoved out the screen, he made it an issue. I don't think he expected me to see his ass, but I'd had some champagne and smoked a Meditative again stayed full on meta. You can't imagine how it could have been any better. I got to the top of the stairs and there he was. Like, you awake? I was about to abduct you, cuz. I jumped back in there and kissed myself, and then I climbed out the window after the elf, and I woke up in my bed, and there was something on my head, and everything was weird, and everything was mad. I helped out my boys. They thought this was noise. They thought it was a dream. They thought it was my toys. They thought it was my problems, and they think I should seek therapy, and I don't know what to do because it doesn't really scare me. If you really want to know who I think I'd be, I think it's you and me and us and me and him and her and that and she and that thing over there and what's that, Jake? Remain serious, open your mind, consider your heart, consider time, consider your space, consider your lies, consider your life, consider your eyes. It wasn't a tic-tac and not quite a saucer.
What's that in the clarity that's on the moon? Got sleep forever since they got within my room.
It wasn't a tic-tac and not quite a saucer.